One of the stories which happened during the time of Imam al-Kadhim salawatullahi wasalamu alayhi, when he was in prison, Harun al-Rashid sent him a slave woman, a Jariya, and she was very good looking, so pretty and beautiful, because he was trying different methods to torture the Imam, to embarrass the Imam, in front of the guards, because it happened originally as the Khalifa or the Hurraz, the guards themselves, they were embarrassed. They noticed that the Imam 24/7 worshipping, praying, reciting Quran, and some of them, they were asking people who are in higher level or the Khalifa himself, that there's nothing wrong with the Imam, why do you imprison him? So he tried to show them that no, he got desire, he does this, and one of the ways, evil ways, was sending him this good-looking slave woman, trying to put the Imam in a corner, and that Imam may fall in love with her, and that probably will reduce the level of piety and respect of the Imam salawatullahi wasalamu alayhi in front of those guards.
She was ready to offer to Imam whatever service Imam wanted, but Imam alayhi salam refused. Why? Because he knew we live in a world which is full of temptations. For Imam alayhi salam, yes, he knew that this is a test, but I want to teach my followers and anyone who comes to hear the story of my life that there will be a lot of temptations outside there, and the killer one is sexual temptations. And especially when a woman is offering herself to you free of charge. This temptation, if you can manage to overcome it, then you can overcome each and everything. Unfortunately today, so-called evil people who know our weaknesses, they use sexual attractions to demolish our lives, men and women, young and old. Why? Because it is easy way for us to be captured with this temptation of shaitan.
This is something highly important for us nowadays, and as we all, especially we people living in the West, surrounded by things which affect our sexual desire, and it's very hard for young people who go to universities, college, anywhere, work, a job, everywhere is mixed, and the way people here they dress, they're not wearing hijab, the advertisement, the media, it's so difficult. Even nowadays the buses, all buses are covered. You can't even lower your gaze, and wherever you go you can see things. When you drive, this is there. How would you control your desire? How would you put down the level of desire and make yourself chaste or even more brave, as we say in Arabic, or more in control of your sexual desire?
Now, the hadith says from one of the Imams alayhim that النظرة سهم من سهام إبليس مسموم. Looking or gazing on some on the woman, for example, is one of the arrows, poisonous arrows that is thrown to the eyes of that person, and he literally keeps looking at that female, or even vice versa, if the female looks at one of the male, for example, same thing. So the shaitan, the devil, is sitting there to actually hunt those two genders, to make the fitna between them. So the best method, or the first method, is to avoid looking intentionally. Sometimes you don't look without intention, that's a different story, but do not look intentionally to what makes the last temptation and so forth. Avoid looking as much as you can, because it's all filled in the media, in TV, internet, outside pictures, in the street, people walk. So try to avoid looking with intention. Just keep normal walk and do not pay attention to these temptations.
There's a hadith that is beautiful. Every hadith is beautiful. This hadith in this particular discussion is useful. He said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created malaika and He gave them intellect. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created animals and He gave them desires and lust. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created humans and He gave them desires and lust and intellect. If humans are able to overcome their lust and desires via their intellect, then they can become higher than the angels. If they let their desires overcome their intellect, then they will become worse than animals.
When we look at the life of Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, it brings into us to say, you know what? The society and the norms within our societies, we need to approach it differently. Parents, when you know this particular situation, you have young people within your houses and they are ready for marriage, follow the hadith of the Holy Prophet that you need to marry your young ones when they are young. Why? Because this will protect them from many calamities which may come if they are not married. Not only that, the society should come to a level of saying you need to help young people in order for them not to commit adultery and those others not to commit fornication. Why? Because if we go that way, then we will cause trouble to the future of our young generation or the future of the coming generation. Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam wants to say that if you control, you take charge of your life, nothing is difficult. Why? Because it is you who decide whether to do it or not to do it. Because many people, when they commit, for example, zina, at the end of the act, they will blame themselves. Why did I do it? So he says, don't go that way. Stop now not to do it in order for you to live a safe life.
We all need to work hard, whether it's the new generation, the young generation, or the older generation, to make life easy, to provide alternatives, because as you mentioned, and as others even mentioned, that not always the case, although it's highly recommended to fast and to have early marriage. Early marriage maybe not the case. Most of them, they can't afford it nowadays, this and that. So alternative is to fast. Some people, they find fasting not by itself is not enough. Lowering gaze, some people, they found this is even not enough, and so on and so forth. Having all of them, the three of them together, may help. We can't have one solution which help to sort out all of these problems, but having all of them together, I think partially it can help.
And of course, other steps is to keep yourself busy with ibadah, keep yourself busy with saum, for example, keep yourself busy with sports, keep yourself busy with the right people. Try as much as possible not to be in that kind of vain life where you don't know what you're doing and you go places where you're not supposed to go. Maybe by following these steps, insha'Allah ta'ala, we'll be able to control ourselves.
Initially, we need to observe the disadvantages and the advantages of the situation. In other words, if the parents want to avoid their sons or daughters to get married in the early time of their age, say in their 18s, and let them off to go and study, especially to go away from home and study maybe in other cities, universities and so forth, and stay there, or to get married and face the difficulties of life, we have to have a list of advantage and disadvantage. And there we can discover that if that youth or that son or daughter, if they stay away from the marriage, what would be the results? Always look at the far end, the result. If this girl or this boy, for example, they went away and they had haram mates and so forth, eventually that will cause, the devastation of family breakups we've been witnessing in the West for the past years. So the best solution, I think, is to allow them to study. In the same time they get married and they both study, for example, and the support comes from the parents. Because who do they want the money to be saved for? For their children. So that's the best time to invest their money in their children. And the marriage is the best. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the sustenance will give them the wealth. يُغْنِهُمْ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِ. Allah will make them wealthy out of the marriage. So there's no contradiction between studying and marriage. Because at the end of the day, that youth will go and find something when he feels that he needs. So it's the same thing. If he goes and he finds a friend from the haram and he brings her or him at her or his flat, then that's the same thing. So if we do it the halal way, we number one protected the boy or the girl, and at the same time we have supported them both in covering and fulfilling their desires, and financially we'll help them financially as well to continue their studies. So in all means they need support, not only for their studies, because if they were to go and find the alternative in the haram way, in the wrong way, they've gone, that's it. There will be no control over them. So the marriage is the best form. It won't cause any interruption to their studies. They can both study, in different, let's say, same university or different university, and continue. And the support comes from the parents, and they have definitely a happy life. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He promises something, He won't just promise out of nothing. When He says that I will make them wealthy, I will make them in good state, then Allah will do so. But the thing is, we have to make sure that they do not fall into al-haram. It is my responsibility as a parent to make sure that if I do not allow my son or daughter to have the halal relationship through the marriage, then I have to make sure that they won't fall into the haram. Because if they fall, it means that we have lost the challenge.
The most important thing in terms of relationship between a boy and a girl, whether it is for temporary marriage, and especially in this case for temporary marriage, if we want to look at it as one of the ways to solve problems, we need to look at the intentions of the people. And of course, there is no harm to look at the history of this particular individual who is approaching a sister. If the history is known, then the sister should be aware that this particular relationship may cause my life. So they need to be aware of that. However, we sometimes don't want to involve other people when we want to engage in relationship, especially sisters. Why? Because I want this issue to be just between this particular man and this particular sister. But this world, there are many people who may come in a different shapes and forms. They are players. They just want to destroy the life of this particular girl. I would advise my sisters to seek more advice, maybe from the sisters or from those scholars maybe, or social activists, to say, I want to know the CV of this particular individual. Why? Because at the end of the day, the relationship, whether it is muta or not, it will be the best relationship if we do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Unfortunately, young people, they miss to go this particular way, and eventually you can see poor girl her life has been destroyed. Why? Because of one particular relationship, and after that she will never be married. So we need to be aware of those people. We call them players. We need to be aware of them, that they are around there, and they may come in a garb of religion just to say, well, I'm a religious person and you take me and the life will be okay. So we need to be aware of those people. And social activists, if they know them, I think it's not a bad way to say, you know what, beware of this particular individual because he may cause trouble. Well, by saying it may cause trouble, but we are saving a life of a human being here who will be the mother of the whole community, and we need to be aware of that.
Every person you see around and ourselves as well have the ability to overcome our desires and our lust. And not always is necessary to overcome it, because sometimes it's halal. At the end of the day, when you have a food in front of you and you're hungry and it's halal for you to eat, you don't need to overcome your wants, you can have it. However, if that food is haram, then what that will do is it will go into your body and it will go into your bloodstream, and your meat will develop from it, your brain will develop from something that is forbidden. Your thoughts will change, your prayer will change, your entire system will change for the worst. However, if you're able to say no to it, automatically you've passed that challenge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you praise for it, will give you things that you never had before, hence your faith will be stronger. When it becomes to physical desires, it's the same thing. When you overcome physical desires, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you that strength that you need, gives you that ability. See, shaitan is very strong. For every person, he attacks them differently. It may be that you pray Salat al-Layl, and you pray all your mustahab prayers and your fast and everything, and your khums and zakat and everything else. But when it comes to physical, you have a weakness. That's where shaitan can get you. A well-rounded person works upon himself. It's just like any other sort of training, that you don't allow your nafs, your wants, to get the better of you. Instead, you allow your intellect to get the better of you. As we said, you know that you're here for a very short period of time in this dunya. Is it worth, for seconds of pleasure, to have eternal fire, eternal hell? Is it worth to ruin the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Until now you had the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is it worth to take it all and throw it away just for those moments of devilish pleasure? If it's not, then allow your intellect to take over, not your desires and not your wants. Allow your angelic side to take over, rather than your animalistic side. Because if you do that, then automatically afterwards, you as a human feel fulfilled. You as a human, you feel that you've done something great. You feel pleasure within you. Just like if you wake up for morning prayer, one day you don't wake up. That day that you don't wake up, you realize that you've let yourself down. Not just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but yourself. You feel bad in yourself. Whereas the morning that you've woken up earlier than Salat al-Fajr and done Salat al-Layl and done your Quran and everything else, automatically you feel within you that warmth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does that to you, gives out those warmth and that faith and that iman that you're looking for. All you have to do is reach out there. Don't forget, Sahib al-Zaman, the 12th Imam, is around us everywhere. Is all hearing, is all seeing. He is the Imam of our time. And the Imam of our time means that you can reach out to him, and you should reach out to him for help. At the end of the day, if people have friends, if people have families, if people have people in higher places, there's no one in a higher place and more powerful than the 12th Imam. Reach out for help. The morning that you reach out for help, you see the difference in that day. The night that you reach out for help, you see your sleep in that night. Anytime you have troubles, whichever troubles they may be, ask for assistance and see how it changes. If you have desires and you're not sure how to deal with them, and you think you might fall into the traps of shaitan, then say, Ya Sahib al-Zaman. Ask for Sahib al-Zaman for help. There is no way the Sahib al-Zaman will let down any of his followers. But we have to also understand the bigger picture, that if we are calling ourselves the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi wasalam, then our actions must follow those words. It's a huge responsibility. It's not easy. It's very difficult in this world that around us is challenge after challenge after challenge, and most people around us live for the dunya only and for the materialistic world, and we want to live for the afterlife. So we're living two parallel universes. You have a universe of everyone around you who only see this world and nothing after it, whereas us who see this as a means to an end, and the end is what is eternal, hence those conflicting thoughts exist. But if you're strong enough in your ideology, then you can overcome any desire that is deviating in your life. You can overcome it with the faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with the help of Sahib al-Zaman, ajalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, inshaAllah.